Hey everyone, welcome to this week's weekly missions roundtable with your West Coast hub. And I am here today with my sidekick, Miss Alli Hazrati. Alli, say what's up.
Hi, welcome to this week. We're happy to have y'all.
She is our administrative assistant, the glue that holds our hub together. And let's be honest, I'm really her psychic. As you can see, we do not have Mike on with us, but we will carry on without him. He will be back next week, Lord willing. But we do have a very special guest, Miss Alyssa Davila.
Hi.
I want to make guys. I can butcher names. I want to make sure I don't butcher names, so I'm like so careful. But we have Alyssa here, and Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us and for being willing to just talk about your experience growing up on the mission field. You are a missionary kid, and we really wanted to have you on this week because I think a lot of times for families who are going to the field, one part of going to the field can be forgotten. That's how that will affect the children. They're being removed from their home country at times, and there can be a lot of fear and anxiety, sometimes frustration. And I think it's good for those who are on the field and missionary kids who are either about to experience it or experiencing it now, to hear from someone who grew up on the field and kind of just your experience and how God has really used that to shape your walk with Him. So, the first question I have is, what was your experience on the mission field? What field were you on, and how did that help you?
Yeah. So I was born on the field. So I've only ever known being a missionary kid. So I was born in Colombia, which was my parents' first field. And then we moved when I was pretty young. So I don't remember that one as much. But we moved to Chile, and we lived there for about 9 years. So that's really where my memories began, was in Chile. And so for a long time, I honestly didn't know what it meant to be in MK or that I was different. Just because I had friends that spoke Spanish. I grew up speaking English and Spanish. And so I never felt really out of place until I went to the States. And that's when I was about 10, we went to the States for 2 years, because that's when the economy dropped and we had to raise more support. So we had to be in the States for a while. That's when I realized, oh, I'm pretty different. That's when I realized how many different experiences I have compared to people in the States specifically. And after that, we moved back to Chile for about a year. And then we moved to our next field, which is Costa Rica. And that's where my dad's from. And so it was really interesting getting to move to my dad's hometown and getting to experience that country. That's where I would consider home now. And then I stayed there until I was in high school. And then I went to college in the US. It's been an interesting life, I guess. Getting to grow up in different countries and also different cultures. It's all in Latin America, but they're all different and unique. So it's definitely shaped who I am today. It's hard fitting in sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's like a negative stigma about missionary kids and how they walk away from the faith or just have a hard, maybe a hard relationship with Jesus or still following Him. How have those unique experiences you mentioned positively impacted your relationship with Jesus?
To be completely honest, they probably haven't positively impacted me until I was much older. When I was younger and I didn't really realize I was different, I didn't have many qualms with God and I was totally cool with Him. And then once I was in the States for 2 years, that's when I realized, oh, wow, I'm really different. And, I never blamed my parents for how many times we moved, because I always knew ultimately it was God's calling and God telling them where we were going next. So I knew who to blame. So I honestly have struggled with a lot of years of anger towards God with being an MK, because it was never something I chose. It was just part of my life. And I've realized how much it impacts me since being in the States, with being in college and then staying here after graduating. It's taken a long time for me to kind of accept and be okay with having been in MK and not always really feeling like I fit in or feel like I have a home. And I still can't stand the question where I'm from. I just kind of internally just go, okay. And so it's taken a long time for me to not be angry with God about who I am and my identity and being an MK. But ever since there's still days I'm still angry about it. But when I'm not as angry about it, it's definitely given me a new perspective on what it means to be a child of God and realizing that his kingdom is so much bigger than just where I am right now and how it's everywhere. And I have friends all over the world that I still keep in contact with. And it's really interesting getting to see God work in different areas of the world, as well as my own life, and getting to see that in other cultures and countries. So it's taken a while, a lot of therapy, to be where I am now. But I'm very thankful to be an MK and to have those experiences, because it definitely helps broaden my perspective of God and what he's doing, not just in my life, but other people's lives as well.
And that's the perfect segue for how do you feel about global missions now, being on the other side of it, not being currently on the field anymore?
Yeah, it's it's sometimes it's hard for me not to be bitter when people, especially when I was in college, I had a lot of people who didn't grow up on the field say like, oh, I just have a heart for missions and I really want to go on the field. And I would have to like really hold back and like not say anything too negative about it. Because unfortunately, when you grow up in it and you live in it, you see the great things that happen and you get to watch all these wonderful things happen before your eyes. But then at the same time, you also know exactly what happens on the field and how it's not always this perfect picture of, oh yeah, everything goes exactly as planned all the time. That's not always how it goes. And so it's hard for me sometimes not to be the bitter, cynical person who's just like, are you sure you want that? But when that gets pushed to the side, I definitely, I try to encourage people to really look into the field that they want to go into. But I'm very thankful for people like my parents who are still in the field. And I know quite a few missionaries that are still with MTW that they're really inspiring, and really thankful for them, that they're still persevering, because it's not easy being an MK or being a missionary. It's not easy. It's not glamorous. So I definitely am very thankful for people that take up that calling and trust God and do what they're called to do.
No, I think that's so good. I love how real you are. And this is the reason why. I think a lot of times within Christianity, we feel like, okay, we have Jesus, therefore life is so perfect now, and it's not hard. And as someone who's, walking the path of getting ordained in the PCA, one thing my father-in-law and other pastors have told me is, hey, if you can do anything else than pastor, do it. Being a pastor is very hard. It's very stressful. It's very heartbreaking. You deal with a lot. Not only are you dealing with other people's sin, but you deal with your own, and it's lonely. And they're telling me the truth, because, a lot of times for those of us who say we want to go into ministry, we can sometimes think it's only preaching and it's only, the Bible studies and, the quiet moments with God when you have your coffee and your Bible and the sun is shining in your room and angels are singing in the corner, as opposed to burying a child, or, watching a family go through a divorce, or people leave your church because of how, sometimes it's the things they're leaving the church over is just not, they're not good, but they're leaving the church over it still. And it's like, dude, it's so hurtful. So I think it's so good. And I appreciate how real you are, how raw you are, because being a missionary, as you said, and I'm going to take your word for it as someone who hasn't been on the field, is difficult. It's not always glamorous. It's very difficult. And there's a lot of spiritual warfare. There's a lot of issues. And I love how not only has Christ helped you, but he's helped you through therapy. It's okay to go to therapy, to get counseling, to talk to someone. So I appreciate you being honest about that. To end this, would you speak a word of encouragement? Maybe there's someone on the field, a missionary kid on the field, or someone who's coming back who they're struggling. You know, hey, I'm a Christian, I love Jesus, but I'm also angry with him. And I'm not too happy with how my life has been to this point, or what my life is about to look like. And again, it reminds me of the Psalms where David's like, God, I love you, but where are you? Like, you have left me. And it's like David is being real and raw and honest, and God can handle that because he's God of the universe. So yeah, what would you say to someone who's struggling right now and saying, you know, at least I'm kind of where you were or are, and I'm confused, and you know, what do I do? What would you say to that person?
Oh, it's a loaded question, Anthony.
It is a loaded question. I'm sorry for the loaded question. It's just when you hear people be real and raw and honest, it's so needed in the church today. And I think it's one reason why the world sees the church and they're like, you guys are fake. Because life isn't just easy. And it's like, it's so helpful. It's such a good witness for people to say, oh, these are people who say they love Jesus, Jesus loves them, and yet their lives are still as hard, and yet they have, you know, they still hold on to their faith. So whatever words of encouragement you may have, or just anything that's on your heart, we'd appreciate it, because I think this is going to help a lot of people out.
Yeah, I think one thing is I was very, very blessed with a lot of people who they had these kind of like, I don't know what to call it, I guess processing or kind of saying goodbye workshops for MKs. I remember one of my youth group leaders back in Costa Rica, before I came to the States for college, he had this like a night where he just had all of the seniors come and just talked about, you know, you're leaving one culture to go to another, and it's going to be different, it's going to be hard. And he was trying to talk about, you know, ways to process grief. And you know, I didn't really grow up talking about processing grief or realizing how much I lose as an MK, with how many times I've moved, how many times I've said goodbye. You always lose something, even if you don't realize it. Sometimes you don't realize what you lost until after you've left. And how important it is to recognize those losses and to not discredit them, but to realize how important they really are, and to have that space to grieve them in a healthy way. Unfortunately, a lot of my life, I have just buried so much of the grief and been like, all right, let's just move on, next thing, got to keep going. But I think one of the biggest things that's helped me is learning how to grieve the loss, even if it's something tangible or something just inside, is learning how to recognize the losses and giving it space to be there. And then the next thing, I had a really wonderful friend tell me this when I was going through a really rough patch. And she told me, she's like, you know, it's okay to doubt God because he's big enough to take it. And that's the same with our anger. I mean, God is big enough for your anger, for your doubts, for your struggles. Like he's not going to walk away and be like, you know what, I'm going to let you figure that one out on your own. You know, he's not going to do that. Like he's big enough to take I mean, the amount of times I've cried out to God and called him not great names, you know, like, I mean, the amount of times I've had to do that because of how angry I have felt. And he doesn't walk away. He's always going to be there. He's not going to cry over what you call him or what you say. He's going to patiently listen and sit with you while you cry it out or yell it out, and he'll still be there when you ask for help. And that's just been a big thing that I've had to learn with God, is that he's not going to let go. And he's not going to walk away even when I do sometimes.
Ooh, man, that's gospel right there. He will never walk away even though I walk away often. So that was so good. Alyssa, thank you so much for coming on, for honestly keeping it 100. For those who don't know what that means, keeping it 100 means to keep it real, raw. Let me translate that for you. But seriously, we appreciate you. We love you, sister. And, you know, if you are an MK, are about to be MK, reach out. There are resource reps for Mission to the World. Ask your parents and reach out and, you know, get that dialogue started. I think you see the resources God has given you, which is to prayer and seeking help. And both of those are just amazing gifts from the Lord. So with that being said, Alli, how can people find out more about the Hub and
on our link above or below?
Wherever we place the link.
On the Get Started link above us, probably. You can find us there. Also, we have on our YouTube page, MTW West Coast, as well as our Facebook page, MTW West Coast Office, right?
Yep. MTW West Coast Office. You guys, we love you. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Love y'all.
Thanks. Bye.